Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Cumulative value. So this is a topic that comes up in our board meetings all the time, cumulative value. So tale of two chips. Chip number one. There's a 6502. Actually, it wasn't built by Motorola. The 6501 was, and Motorola built the predecessor to this. And if any of you had the Mac 2s, I had a Mac 2. Great. How about an Apple II? Did you have an Apple II? Anyone? Okay, Apple II. 2E. Great. I had the C. This was the processor. And so when Motorola came out with their next chip, they had a clean break. It's just they decided this architecture was inferior. Technically, this wasn't them. Some guys had taken their core architecture and done something better with it. But rather than have compatibility with the predecessor of this, they built a new architecture, and it was fantastic. If anybody is programmed in 68,000 assembly, you got these 32-bit general registers. You don't have to deal with these games around segmentation, accumulator. What on God's earth is an accumulator anyway, right? And I can remember early in my career as an engineer at Hewlett-Packard having an argument with the marketing department saying, and this is an instance where I'm going to contradict the previous point I made on the value of marketing. That's fine. But arguing with the marketing department saying, what are you guys thinking? We're going to abandon the 68,000 for our HP workstations, and we're going to move to this Intel processor in addition to our RISC, because we had RISC also. And they said, yeah. And I go, have you looked at these two processors? I mean, the Intel 8086 family, it's a mess. It's an absolute joke. You won't have the quality of software written on this processor. You won't have the quality of the development tools, et cetera. He goes, nah, you're wrong. Just look at the numbers. And I was wrong. I was totally wrong. But you know, and here's to illustrate, by the way, here's the Hello World program written in 68,000 assembler. Look how beautiful that is. It's so clean, right? And the Trap 15, you know, that's going into the Apple operating system there. But what happened is you had the 6800 family, the 68,000 family, the 88,000 family. They were all independent. They were all independent of one another. And so you didn't have this compatibility. So all of the developers that had written code on this, they had to start again. And all the developers that had written code on this, again, had to start again. And so you didn't have anything kind of really growing every time there was a new generation of the processor. And even though the new architecture was better than the old, and it was, it didn't matter, because if you look at the same chart for Intel, okay, here you got the 4004, here's the 286, 386. You know, if you look at the i7 core, you still have some base level, not universal, some base level 8086 assembly compatibility across the architecture. Even this guy, you could write an assembler where it could interpret some of that code. And by the way, it looks awful, right? Here's Hello World in 8086 assembler, and you know, note this program is in 32-bit protected mode. What in the hell does that mean, right? Blah, 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 EBX, EAX. You know, add the E onto the AX to make it a 32-bit register versus the previous 16-bit register. But then look at this picture. And so the Intel has 80% share of about a $40 billion a year market, you know, $44 billion a year market. Cumulative value. So it's like if you end up taking my advice and firing the marketing department and having only engineers, don't let the engineers convince you they got to start over every time. Don't believe the story. It's not true. Okay, life isn't always better with a new architecture. There's a reason why the other one worked. Or let me ask engineers in the audience this: how many times have you come into a company where you inherited the code from the successful product and it's horrific, right? And it's like, gosh, I don't want this code. It's an absolute mess. Well, gee. But that product was so successful. That's like the basis of the business. That's why everybody's working on that product now. Well, go figure, right? Okay, cumulative value.